Hey everyone, my name is Boulevard and I'm going to be bringing you the action here for the King of Runeterra tournament hosted by Riot, Korea, and Inven. This tournament is a 3 vs 3 best of 5 modified conquest tournament, so I wanted to explain what that means before we get into the action. Each team has brought 5 decks and each region may be used twice within their lineup. There are no bans and no restrictions on what deck may be used in any game, except that no player may play a deck that their team has already won with. Each team must play all 3 players between games 1 and 3, and then may bring back any 2 for games 4 and 5. Once a team has won with 3 of their decks, they are declared the winner of the match. If you forget this or need to see it in writing, it'll be in the description below. Now, let's get into the action. Welcome one and all to the finals of the King of Runeterra tournament. My name is Boulevard, going to be casting for you here today. We have Team River versus Team King. We have Dawn versus Manserin. Getting us started off here with a championless burn mirror. Now, so far throughout the top 4, we have not seen the championless burn deck perform super well. It's run into a couple of tough matchups in Door Spiders, Lux Karma, but we are definitely going to see our first win of championless burn here so far, and no 1-drop on the side of Manserin. Does mean that they are going to fall behind pretty early on here. However, Dawn's hand not actually lining up particularly well for them, and Dawn looks like they made an oopsie, perhaps wanting to get the Legion rearguard down. We're going to see Crimson Disciple come out, and with 2 Demolitionists, there's nothing actually that Dawn can play this turn that is impactful. Probably going to have to develop the Legion rearguard after the fact, mostly just to get something down that the Demolitionist can go onto, but Manserin, even though there was no 1-drop in their hand, does find the Disciple Demolitionist combo. Both players with a Static Shock, both players with a little bit of burn. And overall, I think I prefer the hand of Manserin for the long game, though I'm not sure how long the actual long game is in the burn mirror. I don't think Manserin can afford to block with this Crimson Disciple, but Mystic Shot isn't off the table. Could be thinking about how a Transfusion plays into this, perhaps even the Noxian Fervor that we do see in Dawn's hand. Now we'll see if Dawn actually wants to fire off this Noxian Fervor either onto face or the Crimson Disciple. The second Mystic Shot in Manserin's hand does mean that this will not work out for him, especially if it's going down onto the Disciple. Might have let it go at face just to get the burn spell out of the hand, still take the 3 damage, but I think we... Oh! Okay, we are actually going to see this one let go by Manserin, and that's very strange to me that the Mystic Shot didn't come out. Not sure what we're setting up here for, what we're saving this Mystic Shot for, but I definitely think getting down the Demolitionist Disciple combo would have been very impactful. It looks like Manserin sort of bailed out by a Boom Crew rookie top deck here, and Dawn still can't play either Demolitionist. With the rear guard gone, he would have to kill one of his own units to push the 2 damage down. And while it would be fine to Demolitionist a Demolitionist, he doesn't have it lining up. And now the Static Shock onto his 2 1-health units. At least Dawn doesn't feel bad about getting the Demolitionists down now, but definitely doesn't feel good about the way this board state is working out for him. And it looks like Manserin's hand being better suited for the long game is actually going to pay off here. And the draw off of that will be a Noxian Fervor, a pretty good pickup. Yeah, Demolitionist going to block out this Boom Crew rookie. Demolitionist likely to be the follow-up as well, sort of maintain the life advantage. Could hang on to it for a Disciple. Yeah, looks like that's going to be the play instead. Don't hate that. A Boom Crew pickup. If we don't go for an open attack, then we do get to see this used Cask Salesman get quite a bit of value. And with the life totals even, Boom Crews on both sides, I think we would see a block by the Cask Salesman onto the Boom Crew, so that is something that Dawn has to consider. Could actually fire off the Static Shock onto the 2 casks if they really wanted to push through the damage, but I think you really want to save one proc of the Static Shock for whatever the Boom Crew gets blocked by, so I do like not going for the Static Shock onto the 2 casks. I think that would have been a buck wild play out of Dawn. But yeah, actually, Manserin not even going to risk the health on the Cask Salesman, is just going to take the defensive route and block out with the casks. Hasn't quite locked this in yet, could even be considering a Mystic Shot onto something, although I'm pretty sure Manserin, just thinking about the blocks, trying to figure out if it is better to push some damage onto the opposing Boom Crew rookie. He did just have a pretty big punish with the Static Shock, so he's going to be wary of a punish from the Static Shock from Dawn. Looks like, yeah, is actually going to decide that that doesn't matter as much. Rearranges it to throw the Cask Salesman in front of the Boom Crew. Push some damage onto it. I think I like this play a little bit better. We do see the Static Shock in Dawn's hand, but I don't know how much that's actually going to matter. Would have to fire it off this turn, though. We do see the Noxian Fervor in Manserin's hand to go ahead and punish that one out. And so far, I do think Manserin's still favored in this matchup. Even though the Disciple didn't live for the Demolitionist combo, does seem to have a better control of the board, life total, and hand... Well, not the life total, at the moment anyway. There is a... I do think life totals are going to swing heavily back into Manserin's favor on the next turn. Yeah, Demolitionist even gets to come down for free onto the Cask if that is what Manserin wants to do. That will definitely get the Static Shock out. A little bit unfortunate, but it is the safest way to do it. You don't really care if the 2 damage doesn't come through. You really just want to get down this 2-3. The fact that the damage from the Cask will come through anyway, it's all well and good. So both players actually getting a very high value Static Shock. And now we see the Disciple picked up by Dawn after holding on to a Demolitionist. Going to be rewarded for his patience. And both players a little bit too high for the burn to start coming out. Yeah, going to be the attack, the all-out open attack from Manserin. Looks like the one block going to line up, not wanting to risk the Boom Crew. Of course, this does set up yet another valuable Static Shock on the side of Manserin. But 10 life for Dawn, starting to really get down there in life total. Not enough cards in Manserin's hand just yet to really make him worried about this, and we are going to see a fair amount of burn thrown back at Manserin. Does have a potential answer for this with the Noxian Fervor. It's possible that Dawn just passes here, would force Manserin's hand on the Static Shock, and that would give Dawn the opportunity to fire off this Demolitionist pretty free. Okay, now we do get to see the full hand from Manserin. There is a second Mystic Shot that we were unaware of due to just a bugged interaction with the hand showing. So that was his draw for turn. It didn't magically appear in his hand. It seems that he was frozen earlier on. Yeah, it looks like Manserin actually decides that they can't afford to float all this mana and is going to fire off the Static Shock onto the Demolitionist and the Boom Crew. I think this is a very reasonable play. I don't think this is like a misplay by any stretch of the imagination. You really don't want to be floating 6 mana in a burn deck, especially when you guys are both down this low. The Mystic Shot is something like, but not necessarily a punish here. There's a chance Manserin doesn't even throw it down in favor of getting the Boom Crew out, although I don't think setting up on your opponent's turn matters quite as much. 4 damage still comes through if the Mystic Shot does come out. Of course, it does still kill the Disciple, which is pretty valuable going into Dawn's attack turn. Ooh, not gonna let it... Or gonna let it happen, actually. Not gonna fire off the Mystic Shot. Holding back a lot of damage in hand is Manserin. The Precious Pet likely to come down from Dawn, but let's see what Manserin can respond with. Legion Rearguard all but useless. The Boom Crew rookie does come down now, so decent targets for this Noxian Fervor. The open attacks from Dawn actually holding back the Crimson Disciple. I don't think there's really much more value to get out of this. 2 Demolitionists have already been found. Just holding it back as a blocker for the Boom Crew, as we know, will not work out. You have to be... On the side of Dawn, you would have to assume that there is a pretty fair amount of burn in Manserin's hand currently, just given how many cards they're holding on to, the way that they've been playing so far. They've been playing out on curve every turn, but they've thrown down a couple of Static Shocks, so it's possible that you don't have a good read, but I think that Manserin would have liked to set up a larger board last turn rather than throwing down the Static Shock if they had one to set up. So there's a chance that Dawn is reading all the burn, in which case I would have liked to see the attack from the Crimson Disciple just to help push through the additional damage. Oh, and Gonna rearrange it actually so the Boom Crew comes out, blocking onto the Demolitionist. Nope, gonna be the Demolitionist mirror lining back up. It's so awkward to watch these players just sit here and line up blocks for the duration of the rope, and it is the Boom Crew rookie finalized here, putting that into Mystic Shot range. And Dawn 1 damage off of lethal. Noxian Fervor off the top. Wouldn't get it done because there's so much burn to stop that on the side of Manserin. And a second burn spell top deck wouldn't do it, as you do need to discard something to get excited. Transfusion will also not do it, since you do need a card to discard for the get excited. And there's so much burn and units on the side of Manserin this turn that I'm not sure Dawn is actually going to find the last turn that he needs to get this done. Actually, if the Demolition, or yeah, if the Disciple blocks onto the Boom Crew, there's actually a chance that he at least eats through all of the burn that Manserin has to offer this turn. Doesn't have enough units to line everything up. Might even have to consider just throwing the Demolitionist away and throwing a Mystic Shot down onto the rear guard. Both players at very low life totals here. These blocks will actually tie it up. Or no, actually put Dawn down to 4 once this Demolitionist goes through, between the Boom Crew rookie, Undermine, and the death of the Legion Grenadier. 4 is a very precarious life total, and he's actually going to lock it in. This is where things get interesting. Manserin does have 3 burn spells, but there's 3 burn spells on the side of Dawn as well. Of course, Dawn does have a get excited, putting them at a slight disadvantage, as well as has a little bit more life to get through. So the question here is Manserin going to Mystic Shot the Crimson Disciple to prevent the 2 damage onto his own face? And it looks like it'll be Noxian Fervor from the Boom Crew onto the face instead. I actually like that a lot. It prevents the 2 damage from the Disciple, gets it through. And even if Dawn throws out something to prevent the Boom Crew dying, there's still 2 Mystic Shot that present lethal in Manserin's hand. Looks like it's going to be a slight double up. Yeah, there's the Mystic Shot and the Noxian Fervor. I believe that puts Dawn at -1. Yep, that is correct. So Dawn now has to respond. Mystic Shot onto the Boom Crew saves 3 damage. But you still die to the Mystic Shot in hand if this all goes through? No, yes, you still die to the Mystic Shot in hand if this all goes through. Yeah, it would have needed to be get excited onto the Demolitionist as well. Oh, the Mystic Shot at face during combat does mean that he will actually be able to go for the get excited onto the Demolitionist to save his life. But his board will be just a Crimson Disciple. So Dawn actually can live here at 2 HP. Manserin will still be at 6. And the board will just be a Soul Disciple to a Soul Boom Crew rookie, with the life total pretty handily in Manserin's favor. But if Dawn goes for an open attack and top decks a Decimate, and just another unit comes out of Manserin, we could see Dawn pick this one up. There's the Decimate. What is it? What was Manserin's draw? If it's any burn spell, Legion Saboteur. Dawn's going to pick this one up with the top deck Decimate. And Dawn, making a pretty bad name for himself as unluckiest player of the year, gets that top deck Decimate and picks up game number 1 for his team here in the grand finals of King of Runeterra.
왜냐면 녹필이 약한 게 아니었고 아까도 솔직히 오히려 저는 던 선수보다는 위쪽 선수 그 악동스 쪽이 아니죠? 네. 던체강 팀 말고 체니아 선수보다는 그 킹가이들 팀 쪽 아까 전 경기 때 네네네. 킹가이들 팀 선수 쪽이 조금 더 실수가 있었다고 보거든요.
Game number 2 here, we've got Team River picking up game number 1 rather, And now we've got Chenia versus Ghost. Ghost saying, I like what that championless burn did. I think I'll try it too. He's going to play that deck here. And we do see the Warning Shot Jagged Butcher turn 1. We've seen so often out of these MF Bilgewater decks so far here in the King of Runeterra top 4. Not going to be able to get blocked out by a rearguard. Does mean Jagged Butcher is going to come down. And it looks like Racing is going to be the name of the game here for Chenia. The second Warning Shot, not as good. The Hired Gun going to come down. Put the challenge ability onto Legion rearguard, but the board lining up very favorably for Ghost is going to be able to trade onto everything available for on the side of Chenia, rather. So that Warning Shot really not feeling super impactful. It was a 0 mana deal too, but as far as the trades go, it doesn't actually help the Jagged Butcher out, since the second 3-attack unit does come down on the side of Ghost. And now Ghost actually with the advantage, because the Warning Shot was fired off. We're going to see an MF come out here, and that does not line up super well onto Crimson Disciple or the used Cask Salesman, which will come down. It's a little bit risky to attack. Your opponent can just block with the Cask Salesman and push through some damage at you. It looks like Chenia going to go for it anyway. Definitely respectable. Wants to just trade out the units, but with already down 1 card and with the second Warning Shot in hand and no plays on turn 4, this is actually kind of a scary spot for Chenia. I feel like potentially should have held back that Misfortune so that you can defensively use it with the Fury of the North on this turn. Maybe just thought that Ghost wasn't going to block it with the Cask Salesman. And now we get to see Ghost even fire off 2 Crimson Disciples if he really wants to. Might bank the spell mana, is going to fire off the second Disciple, and that's going to give Ghost the life lead for the first time so far this game. And Chenia's hand is just so top end now. Picks up the Riptide Rex on top of the Sejuani, the second Warning Shot. I really think that the attack from the Misfortune is a big punish here as he picks up the second Warning Shot, and Ghost is just going to have free range to do whatever he wants with this game. Could set up his board, could throw out the Decimate, definitely prefer the board setup. I want to see this Precious Pet come out too, and just go for a nice open attack on the following turn. Actually holds back the Precious Pet, something I feel that we see these players do a lot, which is a little strange to me. Didn't actually offer up anything in the way of saving mana, as he did still float a little bit, but now at 5, we actually are going to see lethal this turn out of Ghost with the Decimate and the Mystic Shot, and that is going to be game number 2, tied up in a record fashion here from Ghost, tying it up 1-1, Team King versus Team River.
역시나 약탈덱 그리고 그러니까 가장 자신 있어 하는 덱을 꺼냈어요. 서로 간에 자신이 있고 서로 간에 자신이 있는 덱을 가지고 왔는데 아까 말한 것처럼 그렇게 놓고 온다면 상성은 데마시아 쪽이 좋다고 봐요. 네.
근데 지금 이제
이것도 노린다.
이거 경고사격 노리거든요.
3-3으로 나갈 갈고리. 근데 경고사격 안 나올 거예요. 이번에는
Game 2 lasted all of 3 minutes, but now Championless Burn is off the table for both teams as we see Human Jelly lining up against Kang, so-yean. It will be a Jagged Butcher start. No Warning Shot this time around, though. The Fleet Feather Tracker attack feels relatively safe here. I don't think you care too much if that actually trades onto the Butcher. And not a great hand out of Human Jelly. Make It Rain generally doesn't get a lot of value against these Demacia decks because of the wide board and the healthy units that they set up. Of course, we don't see a lot of healthy units in the hand of Kang, so-yean. Is just a couple of single combats in that Fury of the North. Yeah, Hired Gun actually just going to eat this Cythria straight away. Looks like things lining up pretty well so far for Human Jelly. And this Make It Rain, while it generally doesn't get a lot of value, can actually kill onto this Fiora if it does challenge this out. Now we even see the Pilfered Goods. Not enough mana to play the Make It Rain and Pilfered Goods on the side of Human Jelly, but so far, keeping the board under control against a Demacia deck like this has to feel really good for this Bilgewater Freljord deck, whose identity I still haven't quite pinged down. I know that there's a lot of plunder effects in the deck, even seeing the Warning Shots in the main. But not a lot of action going to be coming out of Human Jelly until this Sejuani comes down. Kind of depends on what comes off of the Pilfered Goods. Still a lot of good cards in Kang So-yean's deck for him to steal. It will actually just be the pass. Deciding not to challenge out this hired gun, wants to see this Fiora a little bit healthier. Perhaps baiting a Bannerman play, or at least bluffing a Bannerman play, making Human Jelly feel a little bit more compelled to try and wipe out the units of Kang So-yean. As well as just letting her have access to the Fury of the North. She wants to go for a block here. Would be understandable. It's not often that I advise waiting a turn before doing things. Of course, I do constantly preach it's better to have your opponent play something when you're on the defensive rather than the offensive. Generally, that implies that if the unit dies, then they get to open attack and it feels worse. That wouldn't have been the case last time, but now we do get to see Kang So-yean still holding mana for this Fury of the North. It looks like it will get fired off. The Make It Rain going to hit the face will proc up the Sejuani as well as turn on the Pilfered Goods and the Jagged Butcher. And yeah, I don't think this Fury of the North gets a lot of value other than saving this Fiora, and I think with 2 single combat in hand, Cytherea the Bold, or Cytherea of Cloudfield rather, is not going to get it done. Do need to protect this one. Hold your board where you can. We're still a couple turns off the Sejuani Cytherea turn. Worth noting that Human Jelly will have the attack token on that turn. So if we do see Kang So-yean get past 2 and play the Cytherea, it will take a fair chunk of its life out with this Sejuani. But in the meantime, we've got a fair amount of inactivity from both players until then, unless something big comes off of this. Oh, the Pilfered Goods. Gonna get a Loyal Badger Bear that can come down right away this turn. Is gonna get the Jagged Butcher down instead, since the Plunder did go off this turn. Might as well get that up to a 3/3 where you can. And unfortunately for Kang So-yean, not enough mana for the single combat while the Fiora was buffed up, but Grizzled Ranger, hell of a top deck, and now we do see 2 Warning Shot sitting in the hand of Human Jelly. Could just fire one of those off this turn in order to tick up the Sejuani, though I think a Make It Rain is not necessarily off the table. And if it does hit face, does get to save a Warning Shot while ticking up the Sejuani. I think the Make It Rain actually makes a lot of sense here. There's enough 1 health units on the side of Kang So-yean. Looks like he will fire it off. And where is this one going? Spin the wheel, and the roulette lands on a high roll. We actually see the ideal targets out of Human Jelly. The 2 1 health units and the face going to turn on the Plunder. Means the Warning Shots can get saved. And when this Jagged Butcher blocks onto the Fiora, the Radiant Guardian will get to come down, unless he wants to throw out the Badger Bear here to just cleanly contest the board. Will just be the Badger Bear attack, which means... Okay, we are going to see the block out of Human Jelly, kind of forcing the Radiant Guardian. I definitely don't hate the play. Almost would have preferred to just see it come down as the naked 5/5, but getting the tough does matter a fair amount in this matchup, so I definitely can understand it. The Purify pickup from Kang So-yean, not really what you wanted to see. Would it like to see a wider board coming out to get paired with this Cytherea? We do see the Sejuani come down first, so Cytherea will be able to block that out. I cannot stop watching Human Jelly's face cam. This is definitely one of the most entertaining players I've ever casted. Definitely looking forward to seeing more of this guy in the future. But with the game at hand, Sejuani going to take out this Fiora, and it's so strange because Human Jelly has such a weak hand with the double Warning Shot, and then on the side of Kang So-yean, there's just absolutely no punish because she's loaded up on single combats and hasn't really found the units to push this through. And we see... That's definitely a feeling I can relate to, of the cat coming up to bother you while you're playing. Definitely a little worried for her, as there are some hotkeys that auto-pass priority and declare attacks and things like that. These are definitely the best face cams of the finals. I'll definitely say that. That is the highlight of this game so far. Since both players have stumbled on their hands, the face cams have definitely been where the war is being won. Human Jelly has definitely had the most entertaining so far, and looks like Kang So-yean coming back by bringing her cat into the picture. But in the actual game at hand, the Cytherea does line up pretty well with this Badger Bear. Unfortunately, won't be able to straight away kill the Sejuani or the Radiant Guardian, but I think it's not out of the question that we see a single combat from Cytherea come down onto either the Sejuani or the Radiant Guardian, whichever one blocks out the Badger Bear since it will have Fearsome, or we even see a Purify onto the Radiant Guardian to take the tough off of it. I think it's a little strange for her to go for that before the blockers are declared. I think you could have gotten something out here, although I guess with the War Chef buffing the Badger Bear up to a 6-3, it's not super impactful. I think we will see the single combat from the Cytherea onto the Sejuani here. Or from the Badger Bear onto the Sejuani. I don't like this as much. It does let the Radiant Guardian survive. It looks like Kang so-yean actually having a bit of trouble with her cat. This is definitely something that I can relate to. Many a stream have been interrupted by my cat's quest for affection. But I think this the Riptide Rex pickup off the top for Human Jelly with the warning shots is going to be disastrous for Kang so-yean. This is going to absolutely destroy the board, one that she was already behind on in the first place. And these warning shots haven't been getting much value, but they come in at the perfect time as we see exactly 8 mana on the side of Human Jelly. There's the warning shot down to 15, and Riptide Rex likely to kill everything, and is going to be the case. That might even be a surrender out of Kang so-yean. I do believe it is lethal this turn regardless. We see the single combat come out. Does push some extra damage at her face. Yeah, and we're going to throw that at the Radiant Guardian. It's not as much damage as the Riptide Rex, but the Grizzled Ranger does line up onto Riptide very well. And we do have to see how this all maths out. I didn't get to see exactly where all of these Riptide Rex shots went, but I do know it is going to be a fair amount of damage at face. I'm just trying to figure out if this warning shot is lethal, or perhaps even the warning shot on the following turn that will be created by the Yordle Grifter. It doesn't look like that's the case. It will just be... Oh, yeah, this is a bit of a problem. Thank goodness it is a Grizzled Ranger instead of a Loyal Badger Bear. I had actually forgotten about the Scout attack. That does mean one's going to come through here, but only 5 damage actually going to come through after the fact. But that will be a clear board for Kang so-yean, which is not what you want to see as a Bannerman deck. A Garen top deck could help her get back into the game, as it does contest the board very well and will regen. But we have to see what comes off the top from this Yordle Grifter. There's the Garen I was talking about, but the Fury of the North top deck from Human Jelly actually makes the Garen irrelevant. And the Yordle Grifter actually going to whiff, just creates the warning shot. But this Garen is not going to be enough to get it done, thanks to this Fury of the North from Human Jelly, who continues his reign of having the best player cam so far. Yeah, Garen gonna die, and with the open attacks out of Human Jelly, I don't think there's anything that a Demacia Freljord deck can top deck to stop this. Would require a Harsh Winds given the 2 warning shot in hand, and that just seems so incredibly unlikely. Is actually going to be Garen number 2, which, funny enough, would have been a Garen's Judgment and actually helped out, but of course, no reason not to attack with the Garen there. Unfortunate top deck for Kang so-yean. That's going to be game number 3, going the way of Team King. Game 4 of the Grand Finals, we do see Team River on the back foot fighting for their tournament life. This one's going to be Manserin versus Chenia. 2 players returning back in as we are in Game 4. It looks like a Heimer Vi mirror, if I saw this correctly. Ooh, these are always a little interesting. We do see immediately right off the bat, Chenia is favored as he did open the Heimerdinger, and a pretty weak start on the side of Manserin. Of course, there are still quite a few turns between here and the Heimerdinger actually coming down, so things could change for the better for either player. And we also see the Solitary Monk going to contest the Shadow Assassin fairly well, but The draw from the Shadow Assassin cannot be understated, and a Vi even from Manserin could be a pretty big advantage. We do see Flash of Brilliance for both players as well. Definitely going to like that when it comes down next to the Heimer, but we are just 2 turns off of turn 5. And if Manserin doesn't find a Heimerdinger, then it's very possible that Chenia, just runs away with this game. Don't see any protection from the Heimerdinger outside of the deny, and we do see so much removal for the Heimer in Manserin's hand that it is possible that the Heimer does come down and immediately dies for Chenia. Of course, if he waits until turn 6, things actually work out for him pretty well. We'll have the deny for the Get Excited, which would have to come out prior to the Thermogenic Beam. Unless the Thermo Beam gets fired off onto the Solitary Monk here, which is not out of the question. Yeah, actually will be the case. I believe we saw a similar play earlier in Heimer Vi versus Karma Ezreal, and I do like a 6-mana Thermo Beam onto the Solitary Monk. You're going to be able to float turn 4 anyway. Manserin actually pretty likely to throw down the Shadow Assassin if he doesn't find the Heimerdinger off the top. Doesn't actually have anything to save the spell mana for. Might as well get your guy down. Accelerate yourself towards the Heimerdinger a little bit. You can always take off turn 5. And the second Heimerdinger from Chenia is actually really scary for Manserin. Using the Thermogenic Beam onto the Solitary Monk does mean he has less answers available for this. And we do see the deny in Chenia's hand. I'm actually kind of curious if he's going to throw down Heimer on 5, saying, okay, you know what, I have the backup Heimer. I can just throw this one away to removal. Or if we're actually going to see him wait until turn 6 for the first Heimer and use the deny to protect it, see where he goes from there. With a second 4-mana spell picked up, I actually do kind of like waiting until turn 6. You can sort of pass, and although understandably, if he plays it, I definitely don't hate it. Because Manserin doesn't have the 3 mana available, you could make the assumption that he doesn't have a Heimer, or if he does, he won't play it this turn. And as long as you can continue to make his mana pretty awkward, then you don't feel too bad about losing one of your Heimerdingers. Of course, we do know Manserin only has the one answer, and it's always scary to throw out a Get Excited as your answer to the Heimerdinger. Generally, it just trades for the Twin Disciplines, and that feels really bad for you. A Will of Ionia isn't out of the question just to make the tempo play. Of course, nothing in Manserin's hand feels good as an answer for this Heimer. Definitely wishes that he had stuck around and kept that Thermogenic Beam now. And the Get Excited, such a risky play as well, because you lose a card if it doesn't work out. If you throw down the Get Excited and it is met out by Twin Disciplines, it feels almost like the game is borderline over at that point. You are down an additional card, your opponent is up the turret, their Heimer doesn't have any lasting damage on it, so we are going to see the Will of Ionia come out, just bounce that Heimer up, but we do still get an MK3 Floor Begone, and that means that Chenia still has 2 Heimers and 2 protection spells for it, which get to come down even better on turn 4, or with the 4 floating spell mana rather, so on turn 6. But yeah, cannot understate how backbreaking it is when the Get Excited onto the Heimer doesn't work out. So if you're wondering why Manserin didn't go for that play, the answer is in his own hand in spades with those double Twin Disciplines. So the Solitary Monk, really the only play here. Deep Meditation is cool for the Heimerdinger decks, but it doesn't have any chance of drawing Heimerdinger. And now Manserin, or Chenia rather, might even actually develop the Vi. So I really like the adaptations of Vi and Karma in the Heimerdinger decks. Anytime you have an additional 5-mana champion who can sort of eat the removal for the Heimerdinger because it is a threat in its own, is very impactful for the deck. And we're definitely not going to see the Thermo Beam come down onto this Solitary Monk. Would much rather float the mana into the following turn for the Heimerdinger. Deep Meditation actually even going to come out at full cost, just kind of thinning out Manserin's deck. We do see the triple Flash of Brilliance picked up, so as soon as Manserin finds a Heimerdinger, we have a game on our hands, but with 2 Heimer and not a lot of removal in Manserin's hand, Chenia could end the game before we get there. It seems extremely reasonable to me. We are just going to see the pass back. I think still considering the Thermo Beam onto this Solitary Monk would let you push through quite a bit of damage on the following turn. Don't necessarily have to get the Heimerdinger down. You've pretty much guaranteed at this point, or confirmed rather, that your opponent doesn't have one. So you kind of get into this weird situation where you feel like you need to pressure your opponent because they can find Heimer at any moment, but you're also in this weird sort of, well, I can slow roll the Heimer, I have complete advantage of the game, I can take my time and sort of make plays that are advantageous to me where I can find them. And the Vi pickup from Manserin, it's not a Heimerdinger, but it's something. It is a way back into this game. A little confused not seeing the Solitary Monk attack come out last turn from Manserin. I think there was a little bit of mind gaming going on there from both players that just seems to have worked out in Chenia's favor. And yeah, with only one actual removal spell, there's not a great chance for any of these Flash of Brilliances to pick up a removal spell either. It would really just be... not Progress Day. True Shot Barrage is really the only thing that can come out of a Flash of Brilliance that kills a Heimerdinger if memory serves, at least in these regions. We do see the pass from Manserin. It looks like Chenia also hard considering the pass. You like to have as much mana as possible when going for these Heimer turns, but is actually going to go for the attacks. Feels as though his Heimerdinger is safe enough, doesn't really need to float all the mana, does want to start winning this game and burning down Manserin's life total before they can find an opportunity to get the Heimerdinger of their own. Because this matchup is just such... I cannot understate how much of a blowout this matchup is if one player finds the Heimerdinger and the other one does not. We're even going to see Chenia throw out a Flash of Brilliance to kill the Vi. Does still give him the opportunity to play his own Vi this turn, challenge out the Heimer next turn, of course. We know that won't quite work out for him. And there's actually a chance that we see the Thermo Beam onto the Vi to soften it up for the Mystic Shot next turn. That we know for a fact that's not going to work out because there is another Elixir, or another Twin Disciplines and a Spirit's Refuge in the hand of Manserin. The Vi likely to come down. I think that's going to be the end of the turn for both players. I don't really like trying to soften up the Vi when you know your opponent doesn't have a Heimerdinger, so when you have to sit here and think about what they actually do have, you can kind of surmise that there is a fair amount of protection for the Heimer once it actually is found, because you know they don't have Heimer, and you know they don't have removal for your Heimer. So that really puts them on a pretty narrow range of hands. Not sure that Flash of Brilliance as a 3-of is really the read that you're going to make onto the hand, but Chenia does have a pretty good idea of what Manserin is packing at this point. And it is mostly defensive spells. Of course, you do still get the turret, but there are some... Okay, it is going to go for it. It's kind of a weird play because if you're baiting out the defensive spells on the Vi, then he doesn't have them for the Heimer. So there is some merit to that. We're going to see this Vi go down to 1 health, setting it up for the Mystic Shot on the following turn. The quick attack turret not mattering as much. And we see the third Heimerdinger picked up by Chenia and a second Solitary Monk for Manserin. I think that any Heimerdinger he finds, it's never going to be too little too late as long as these Flash of Brilliances remain in his hand. If he can just fire those off with the Heimer, he'll have a massive board and can swing it back from pretty much any position unless his life total gets so low that it's no longer an option. Chenia thinking about one of these progress days. Would be a little scary. Would put him down to just that secondary Heimer, although we don't see a good answer in Manserin's hand for the T-Hex, Will of Ionia, generally the way that you want to play that one out. So it is actually just not even going to fire off the Mystic Shot. A little bit of a strange play to me, but I do think just top-decking the third Heimerdinger's Progress Day kind of changed out Chenia's sort of envisioning of how this turn was going to go. I'd be surprised to see anything other than a pass here from Manserin. Just let the Vi eat up the Heimerdinger. Vi actually going to survive it because she is tough. We'll have to throw another spell at that later on. For Manserin, though, this does mean that you're pretty confident your opponent has the third Heimerdinger in hand, which is terrifying and frustrating, especially when you are playing the same deck and you have found 0 copies of your Heimerdinger so far. Your opponent gets to play with all the champions, and you're stuck at home with 3 Flash of Brilliance in hand, just waiting for a Heimer that's never coming back.
그나저나 이게 교수님 기다릴 수는 없어요.
저 이제 지금 교수님을 기다렸다가 가네요.
가네요.
네, 이거는
승부수입니다.
승부 뛰었어요.
Oh, are we gonna see
네, 진보의 날 뽑았어요. 그리고
Manserin try to... Okay, not actually totally sure what the purpose of that was. I think Manserin... I thought when they started to fire off the one flash, I thought we might go all in and try to upgrade this Vi, which I was pretty sure wasn't possible given the mana that we had, but the progress they pick up is actually really impactful.
네, 하나 터집니다.
Hand space doesn't quite allow for it, though. Speaking of hand space, if there was a Will of Ionia in Manserin's hand, then this T-Hex would actually force Chenia to overdraw. We do see a Mystic Shot come out onto the quick attack turret now.
어떡해요.
좀 아쉽긴 하네요. 왜냐면 이 타이밍 아니면 같이
네.
맞진보를 좀 쓰기가
This does mean Progress Day can get fired off next turn from Manserin, hopefully to find a Heimerdinger. He is kind of running out the clock on
거기까지 그냥 보는 게
when that can come up and still be relevant. Every flash of brilliance that we lose is a weaker Heimerdinger, and Deep Meditation is not a great pickup. You do want to, you would rather fire off the Progress Day this turn, and you don't want to overdraw. So we're gonna get started off with the Mystic Shot onto the Vi. I like this. There's really not a lot of units in Manserin's deck, so you don't get punished for not open attacking as often, as well as you would love to get through with this T-Hex if you can. We're actually gonna see the Twin Disciplines come out to protect that. No amount of damage in Chenia's hand can take out the remainder of this Vi, so it is going to have to be the T-Hex attack doing it. And there is a chance for Manserin to go for the Vi upgrade, actually. If he fires off both Flash of Brilliance, the Spirit's Refuge, and the Deep Meditation, that'll get him there. But I'm not sure that that's worth it. It is pretty scary. I think you can fire off Flash and one other card, maybe the Progress Day, to get the Vi to trade onto the T-Hex. I think that's pretty valuable, but I think going for the upgrade would be a little bit over the top, kind of taking away all of your resources, putting yourself in a position where if you do finally find the Heimerdinger, you don't actually have the cards in hand to string together with it. And if you do actually use the Spirit's Refuge, that's also getting rid of all of your Heimerdinger protection. And it can be a very challenging position, right? Because you do need to play the game that is in front of you. You can't really sit here and hold out for a Heimerdinger that has eluded you for this long already. But at the same time, if you find your win condition and you're not set up for it, it feels just as bad. We're going to see Deep Meditation get fired off first, followed by the Flash of Brilliance. Yeah. So the Flash of Brilliance makes sense. You are down to 1, so now the Heimer feels even less impactful when he does come out, but at least you're trading onto the T-Hex, which I do think is something that you needed to do. We're not going to see the Heimerdinger come down from Chenia this turn. Doesn't really have the mana to protect it. We're actually going to see the Twin Disciplines come out to save the T-Hex. Decides that that's the new win condition, not the Heimerdinger anymore. Of course, Heimer will come down incidentally, but forcing Manserin to pump more resources into this T-Hex, definitely not a play that I'm mad at, and it looks like the Get Excited might have to come down here. Of course, Mystic Shot also does get it done as it pumps Vi up to 9 attack. Yeah, this is a rough spot for Manserin. I definitely don't blame them for taking this long to sort of puzzle it out. Still trying to barter resources against the Heimerdinger draws that you potentially have coming up in the next couple of turns. And with all 3 Flash of Brilliance gone, the Heimer doesn't feel anywhere near as impactful. Of course, Unlicensed Innovation isn't terrible. I think the Mystic Shot is the preference I would have had. Possible that Manserin just didn't want to trade the Spirit's Refuges. But it is a little strange to me that we're going to let this T-Hex live. Or if we're firing off the Mystic Shot now, then we didn't need to use the Flash of Brilliance before. But with so many possibilities in Manserin's hand, it's possible that they just didn't think super far ahead or really realize how this Mystic Shot was going to line up. Vi, still a relatively new card. Still getting used to the interactions are all of the players. And now Manserin with the attack token doesn't mean much with this elusive turret on the side of Chenia, and there is the Heimerdinger finally coming out for Manserin. As I said, right after, it's almost like a calling card. Once you fire off that last flash of brilliance, Heimerdinger will certainly come. It's like the bat signal in the night for him. Okay, you're out of good resources for me. Now I will come to your aid. We do see the Heimerdinger response from Chenia, who already has the board and life advantage, also has the Heimerdinger removal potential advantage. Kind of depending on what comes off the deep meditation for that one, but... And now we get to see, does Manserin, with the priority and the attack token... Oh, if we do see this Mystic Shot onto the T-Hex, I'm going to feel real bad about that Flash of Brilliance that got popped off last turn, and that is going to be the case. The Mystic Shot does eventually get used onto the T-Hex. And I don't actually, funny enough, I don't think Chenia wants to fire off this Deep Meditation this turn if they don't have to. Would rather let that turn back into the 3-cost spell it was thanks to the Progress Day and get that Elusive Turret instead of just the 1-1. The 1-1 doesn't even, like, add that much to the Heimerdinger evolution, so it feels bad in pretty much every regard. We are going to see the MK2 Tough Turret coming out of Manserin. We actually are going to fire off the Deep Meditation, deciding that we just need the spells. It's going to be Flash of Brilliance and Will of Ionia. Yeah, might as well play that MK1. Thanks to the new rules allowing you to just overwrite your board. That was something that Heimerdinger would have to think about in the past, where you could load up on these weaker turrets like your MK1s and your MK2s, MK0s even, if 0-mana Thermo Beams were coming out or anything like that. Something that was reduced by Progress Day. There were options for it to happen. And now you don't have to worry about it at all. If you were to want to get down a bigger unit here, you could just overwrite your 1-1, send it to the void, obliterate it, however you want to put it. You can play something over it. You don't have to worry about it clogging up your board anymore. Looks like the pass from Manserin, yeah, still unwilling to go for this Get Excited onto the Heimerdinger. 1 mana shy of having the Deny backup for it. Makes a bit of sense to hold it back. The interesting part to me is that we're not going for the Solitary Monk attack. It almost reads like we want to save the Spirit, or at least keep on the table a play where the Spirit's Refuge comes down onto the Solitary Monk, just to beat out one of the elusive units. Of course, it is the only protection for the Heimerdinger. Chenia actually just going to play the Solitary Monk over the MK1. It's actually a lot better for Heimerdinger that you can eliminate. I was going to say it's better for the Heimerdinger player that you can eliminate the turrets now, because getting them down and then eliminating them does just tick you more towards that Heimer evolution. But funny enough, we see the the Shadow Assassin, sorry, come down, draw a Claws of the Dragon, who then immediately tries to enter the field as her effect triggers because 2 spells have been played this turn, but she can't obliterate anything and she just instantly dies. So the Shadow Assassin pretty much just milling a Claws of the Dragon off the top of the deck. This is a little bit dicey if these are the finalized blocks. As I said, Spirit's Refuge is the only protection that Manserin has for the Heimerdinger, but going down to 3 is just as scary. Yeah, it feels so weird. I think you have to throw out your Get Excited onto one of these units, or at least block there. There is a fair amount of burn in the Heimer Vi deck, although you don't want to put yourself in range of just one spell, which is what Manserin would do if they lock in these blocks. Looks like, yeah, not enough burst speed spells to actually get the Claw of Dragon into play. And we are going to see Chenia protect this, potentially. Oh, I had done my math wrong, sorry. He's actually going to be going to 2. So, yeah, saving yourself up to 3, I can understand why that isn't very impactful. You still died a Mystic Shot as opposed to Get Excited, but you are kind of worried about the Get Excited more than anything. If you die to the Mystic Shot, you die to the Mystic Shot. It's more about keeping yourself out of any range. But, yeah, this means Manserin is gonna have to fire off the Spirit's Refuge onto the Solitary Monk. And even that won't work because we do see the Will of Ionia in Chenia's hand. That could start a deny war. Oh, and actually Progress Day fired off. Looks like Manserin, playing for the win instead of not to lose, is going to get punished for it this time around since the answer is in Chenia's hand. And that is going to be Chenia tying up this series for Team River 2-2. And we are moving on to game number 5 of the Grand Finals. After this, Heimer Vimir goes the way of Chenia. Get Excited comes out, and there's nothing that Manserin can do, or they can do about this. And that is going to be all she wrote here in game number 4. We're going to a game 5, everybody. All right, everyone, my name is Boulevard, and it is my absolute pleasure to be rounding out the day here with you in Game 5 of the Grand Finals of the King of Runeterra tournament. It looks like the players that we have returning here for game number 5 are Dawn and Ghost, going to be playing for their team's victory here. We have Lux Karma versus the Sejuani MF Bilgewater Plunder deck. And I have to say right off the bat, I definitely feel like Karma Lux is much better poised for this matchup. I feel like it's just one of the stronger decks overall. But we've seen this MF Sejuani deck be a favorite here in Korea. I don't think we've seen too much of it in North America or Europe. Saw BBG kind of fiddle around with it a little bit in one of the duels of Runeterra. Don't believe he had a lot of success in that one, but it looks like here in Korea, definitely a favorite among these competitors. We actually see a pretty strong hand in the side of Ghost as well. A nice curve of Badger Bear into Badger Bear Creator. And the Black Market Merchant picking up a Badger Bear for Dawn, which generally would feel good. Your opponent plays a Badger Bear. You get to meet it out with a Badger Bear of your own. I do believe that is a 5/6 Citrus Courier. Could come up later. And the wide board does mean that Dawn will get off pretty good Wolf Rider on the following turn, almost certainly. These are definitely some pretty good open attacks. Might as well fire off the 2 Omen Hawk and the Badger Bear. Sorry, the hover on the Yordle Grifter okay, this also confuses me a little bit. I really thought that Dawn was going to go for the Wolf Rider play. Instead, we just see the trade onto the Badger Bears. You would have given your opponent an opportunity to eat one of the Omen Hawks in a value trade, but I definitely would have liked to see the Plunder go off and actually go for the Wolf Rider. Instead, we get a 4/4 Yordle Grifter out, who Dawn, once again, heard me talking earlier about how he was on his way out of his title as unluckiest player of Runeterra so far. Here's me talking about that and instead decides to miss his allegiance trigger on the Yordle Grifter. Getting a little unlucky there. Picks the Sejuani up off the top and actually looks very unpleased with the play that he has made, understanding that now Radiant Guardian can come down from Ghost prior to the attack turns. He is extremely unhappy with this one. Yeah, definitely better to take the 4 damage and let the Radiant Guardian come down after the attacks are gone. You can take it out with Sejuani on the following turn. Dawn, realizing what a misplay this was, and actually fires off the warning shot to get down the Wolf Rider. So that's why we didn't go for these Omen Hawk attacks on the previous turn. We're just planning to use the warning shot here. Although that does mean that we don't have the warning shot for the Riptide Rex, so I really am not a fan of this play that we had made so far. And yeah, Dawn very much on the back foot. His team has rested their hopes and dreams on his shoulders, and unfortunately, the rate of play that he's had so far has not been lining up for it. We see a second Riptide Rex, but this is where the warning shot really comes back to bite. There's no Will of Ionia coming out of Ghost, so it looks like this will just be the death of the Radiant Guardian. Of course, we'll get to set up with another one, but if we had just fired through with the Omen Hawks, we would have lost a little bit of advantage. We'd be down an Omen Hawk, potentially, is I believe how everything would have worked out, worst case scenario, but we'd still have that warning shot. And now with 2 copies of Riptide Rex, it feels incredibly bad that we don't have access to that card anymore. And funny enough, we actually wouldn't have, we would not have missed the allegiance draw on the Yordle Grifter either, which is just kind of semantics at this point. There's no way that I could have known that. And now we're actually throwing out the Black Market Merchant just to push through 1 damage with the Omen Hawk, which wasn't necessary. Or sorry, it was necessary to get a Sejuani trigger that turn, since Sejuani actually didn't deal any overwhelm damage because the Radiant Guardian is tough. And now we see Remembrance, and we also see no warning shot on this Riptide Rex turn. I cannot understate how bad that feels. No way to turn it on. We also see the Lux upgrade coming out, and it looks like Ghost is actually going to make short order of this Grand Finals Game 5, what we were hoping to be an intense game. Just a lot of early and mid-game stumbles from Dawn could make this one end a lot earlier than we were kind of hoping to see. Of course, Ghost, known for his fast games in this Grand Finals, did have a 3-minute win with the Championless Burn in game number 2. Fury of the North, a consideration to protect this Wolf Rider. It is nice to be able to protect your overwhelm units. You're going to need them to get through this Riptide Rex on the following turn. And while 1 could be enough, we do see the Concussive Palm coming out of Ghost's hand, meaning that it would not be the case. And yeah, nothing else to do this turn. Based on the high curve of Dawn's hand, if he is going to be running out Riptide Rex on the following turn, it's actually going to be quite some time before he can get value out of this Fury of the North. So just going to protect his life total and his unit. Well, not his life total. There was actually no threat of overwhelm coming out from that particular final spark. But this is what I had meant earlier about this Karma Lux deck that Ghost is playing here, just being one of the mainstays of the meta. Just such a powerful deck. Remembrance, a really great card. Just developing strong units, guaranteed to be 5/5s for the most part after patch 1.2 when we do see the Great Horn go up to a 5/5. There's still a chance that you could get the Swiftwing Lancer, but you trade off that 1 toughness for a random elite. Don't think you're feeling too bad about that. The attacks for Ghost aren't the cleanest. We actually are just going to see the Omen Hawk not even going off here. Okay, and the Misfortune pickup from Dawn just a little bit too late again. You would have liked to seen that on the previous turn rather, so that he would have guaranteed damage pushed through this turn to automatically turn on the Riptide Rex, as well as take out the Yordle Grifter as a blocker, or the Grizzled Ranger rather, Yordle Grifter. So many G words. Here we see the Concussive Palm onto the Sejuani, but it does mean that Omen Hawk will get through at least, which means we are going to have a nice Riptide Rex coming down. And because it does create 7 individual triggers, that's not something you can deny, which I think is a big power of a Riptide Rex. I was a little concerned the Citrus Courier was going to come down there. Now, I don't see exactly how this lines up. If he can hover the eye, he passed priority, so doesn't get to see how this would all shake out. Speaking of shaking out, Dawn, it looks like he's just trying to shake the misplays out of his head. A couple of early stumbles, but he's got a chance to bring it back. If this Lux goes down, there's actually not a lot of gas in the tank on the side of Ghost. Does still have a Radiant Guardian and a Remembrance, but with a couple of Riptide Rexes and a big Citrus Courier on the side of Dawn, he could swing this one back, but I think I only see 2 Cannon Barrages going down onto the Lux. Or maybe it is 3. It's really hard to tell with all the intertwining blue. It can be a little hard to figure out exactly how this Riptide Rex is going to resolve, and it looks like a deny onto one of the key Cannon Barrages is going to let one of these units live. I would presume the Lux, and it's also going to get a Final Spark, which gets to overwhelm onto the Omen Hawk or just take out the Riptide Rex, which offers up a pretty clean path to victory on the following turn for Ghost. And I think with the Lux surviving the Riptide Rex and health potions now on the table to protect her, I believe that we are very close to entering Limbo, the state where the game is over but has not ended. Yeah, Riptide Rex is going to be the target here. Dawn looking at his very high-costed hand, and understanding that this tournament is slipping away from him and his team. The top decks make it rain. A very unimpactful top deck, especially given that single combat was the pickup from Dawn. Make it rain fire off, and Dawn is actually going to hit the Radiant Guardian, so that's something. Not a complete low roll. Also does, worth noting, get the damage onto face, which is pretty good. Does make Riptide Rex and Citrus Courier available for the turn. Riptide Rex the more likely to come out. It looks like Ghost is considering this single combat. If the Radiant Guardian's going down, maybe he can push through some damage with it. There's no single combat that can be used to take out this Sejuani. So it looks like it will be the single combat and then the final spark to finish it off. Yeah, there's going to be the Sejuani upgrade coming out thanks to the Make It Rain. And the Riptide Rex should be able to take out the Lux this time around. Or you would think with 2 health potions, actually maybe not. It would require 3 hits onto it, even just from a single health potion. It looks like Citrus Courier is actually being considered. I like this a fair amount. Does protect the Sejuani from the final spark. And you're not extremely compelled to block with it. This Lux is still vulnerable. There's still a fair amount of action in Dawn's hand. Can even get down the Misfortune this turn to guarantee the Riptide Rex proc on the following. Because there's no way this final spark doesn't come down from Ghost. It's likely that he goes out for the attacks first, sees which one gets weakened up more between the Sejuani and the Citrus Courier, and fires off the final spark onto that. Actually, is just going to fire it off onto the Sejuani instead. And with the final spark gone and the mana depleted for Ghost, we're going to see Misfortune come out, guaranteeing the attack trigger and the Riptide Rex on the following turn. Do think that Dawn might have brought this one back and be in an okay position. Not out of the woods yet by any means, though. Oh, this is actually the attack turn. That's my bad. Oh, that's right. The Citrus Courier came out, so it's not the attack turn. Right. Right. Just Ghost does have the attack tokens. Alright, so I had actually, God, I had misplayed this turn so bad. I forgot that the attack token was going to come out for Ghost thanks to the Citrus Courier. I thought it was just going to be the healing. And this MF trigger is actually massive because it's going to frostbite the entire board thanks to the Sejuani leveled up. I apologize profusely for not catching that earlier, as it is a big impact on the swing of the game. And yeah, the block's going to get lined up here. But this Badger Bear not actually going to take anything out. I'm a little surprised to see the Sejuani going onto the Lux. I guess it doesn't matter, actually. No, that makes sense. I forgot that everything's getting frostbitten again. I knew that was going to be the case for a couple of things, but I had forgotten that it was going to be the case for the Lux as well. So you do need to fire out and just kind of take the health potion off the table as an answer, since it is the one thing. This is going to push Ghost down to 2. And since Dawn has the open attacks on the following turn, I'm pretty sure Dawn has actually brought this one back for his team. I'm not seeing anything that Ghost could top deck to stop this open attack into the Riptide Rex finish off. And I believe that Dawn, despite his early stumbles, is going to win this one for Team River. The double health potion comes out onto face. I haven't run the numbers. I don't know if this actually gives him lethal. We're probably going to see the single combat come out from the Grizzler onto the Sejuani, but Riptide Rex should end the game. Not actually going to be the case. It will take out the Radiant Guardian, though. So we do see Riptide Rex. I believe that takes out the Guardian and pushes 2 damage at face. What could Dawn possibly draw here? So unfortunate what can Ghost draw here? So unfortunate for Dawn that it was legitimately just the one thing that stopped him from winning this turn, a 5 health tough unit. but I don't think Ghost can draw anything. I'm pretty sure Dawn just has this one. Eye of the Dragon, absolutely not going to get it done. That is nowhere near enough. We see the GG Shen come out, and that is Dawn picking this one up. They put all their faith in him, and it is Dawn clutching it out for their team. So congratulations to Team River, Kang, Sen, Chenia, and Dawn. They are your Kings of Runeterra here in the King of Runeterra tournament in Korea. My name is Boulevard. Thank you all so much for joining me, and that is the end of the tournament here. Congratulations.